a move at the winter meetings. I don't think either of us were surprised about that.
No.
Um, I think you said it, Britt, that we were probably just going to look at a lot of smoke. And we kind of, I mean, we got like medium smoke. We didn't even get a lot. I think it was the first or second day of those meetings that Jerry DePoto said, we're not in the red zone for any sort of deal. I was like, oh, so we're just aware that nothing's happening or likely nothing will happen at all this week. So, um, but the main sort of thing that I want to talk about with this, with the winter meetings coming and going, is the guy that really has been in the center of all the rumors for the Mariners is Luis Castillo. We talked about him last week and the potential of him with Boston. It seems like Boston's still interested in him. So the Mariners have also checked in with him about the potential of waiving his no trade clause because I do believe it's a full no trade clause. So if Seattle's front office is able to conjure up some sort of swap that they'd be happy with, they need to get his approval on it regardless of that. So Britt, I'll let you kind of take lead here and what you're thinking about because I know there's a few teams that have checked in on him that we didn't originally speak of. Just what you're thinking about what we heard about Luis this past week and maybe who fits the best as a trade partner. I know we're again kind of pigeonholed into what this team needs and what teams are kind of willing to offer.
Yeah, I think the any potential for a Cubs trade is probably flown at this point, given the moves that they've made. They've been busy, which must be nice. They did come out, I believe it was Ken Rosenthal. Let me make sure I get that correct. Yes, Ken Rosenthal came out last night, or I should say Saturday evening, and said that the Mets and Orioles have also checked in on Castillo. So those are two teams. The Orioles don't surprise me. The Mets maybe surprise me a little bit that they've checked in on Castillo. So that's interesting. Names that come to mind: Ryan Mountcastle with the Orioles. Possibly, I don't know that you'd be looking at taking a chance on someone like Kobe Mayo, although I do feel pretty confident that he's going to be a pretty good big leaguer. I think they really are, as they should be, looking and wanting big league talent right now. So Ryan O'Hearn is another interesting name there. And the Orioles infield is just kind of crowded with how much talent they have coming through their system, through their farm system. So that could be interesting. I hesitate with so many of the Luis Castillo rumors and everything because unless we start to hear really legitimate reports from the likes of Adam Jude or Ryan Divish or Assen, I have to remember that every writer that's kind of come out and reported on this and said, like someone said Castillo trade was imminent, like it's happening, no doubt. And they're all getting fed information from people with, their own motives and from their
Mm.
own markets. So maybe Boston's trying to spin something. Maybe Chicago is trying to spin something. So there's certainly smoke around it. I don't know how much stock I put into any of those rumors until we really start to get a little bit more locally, till we start to hear from our local folks.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that because I remember it's a different sport, but it's the same sort of message that you're putting out. Around the NFL trade deadline, I think it was Ian Rappaport was like, "There's nothing on DK Metcalf because there was smoke about DK Metcalf." And as much as I might disagree with some of his baseball thoughts, Greg Bell was like, "There was never any smoke." It was like read local. I'm like, yeah, I will wait to hear from these guys first. I know there's only a few instances where the local guys here don't have it first or know something about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean you look at the teams that are interested in him, it's like with Boston, you know, initially going first for a straight one-on-one for Wu or Miller for Cassis. I mean, even then, I don't know if I'm happy with that, truthfully, knowing how good those two young guys are and how good they can be. which is
Yeah.
remarkable. I mean, you say that, and they still had incredible seasons in 24, right? Um, I just wouldn't like. I just wouldn't accept any like as soon as those guys are mentioned in a trade, I'm probably hanging up.
Agreed.
Um, but to get back to Luis, I only reference that because of Boston. Like, you know, I'm not taking a Castillo Classics 1-for-1. I don't think that's representative. I know we talked about that last week, but I want to reiterate that. Um,
Boston
but
fans somewhere are just pulling their hair out at you saying that.
the,
But
well, um, like any friendship I had with them after tweeting about George Kirby's knuckleball and how much the
yeah,
tribute was great. I guess I've lost that good faith there. But, so it's like there's limited stuff there unless Boston feels the pressure, which could be a thing, if we wait this out because of the deals that, a Max Fried signed. Um, you know,
mm.
Castillo's I saw Boston fans like, oh, Castillo's contract is bad. I'm like, are you seeing the other contracts
Oh
that
my
are taking
gosh.
place? Like, wake up a little bit. I don't know. I know their hashtag was dirty water for a while. Have you been drinking the dirty water? But anyway, but yeah, the Orioles are interesting because same thing with them. I don't think there's a guy that they have that you could 1v1, a 1-for-1, right? I think if you're gonna get a Mayo, like, are you spinning because again, you want proven big league talent, right? Like this isn't the sort of situation where you're selling off your aging veterans, to look good in a couple of years. If you're the Mariners, you want to win now and take advantage of this rotation as much as you can. Or if you trade Castillo, what's the other four guys in your rotation, and then probably an Emerson, right? Like we talked about last week. But I think I'd still have those two teams over the Mets because I think in the beginning of the offseason, there was stuff, it was like, oh, give them like Brett Beatty and Jeff McNeil. As someone who has learned more about the Mets because of someone in my life, um, no, no. To even both of those guys, you would have to do both of those guys in addition to a established guy. And again, we can go through the Mets roster, and I don't think the guys that would make this deal worth it. The Mets want to, they just obviously dropped a mega bag that happened after we finished last week's recording on Juan Soto. Like they're obviously trying to just get better. I think that's all in the pitching department right now, but um I don't know what the Mets would give you, right? Because I
They
know
do have
they've
Acuna, who is like I think their top prospect.
yeah,
And he had a cup of coffee last year. But again,
yeah.
chances are probably pretty high he's going to be a established good big leaguer. But you are still taking a chance there, and there's no indication that he's ready.
Well, and then in that regard, if you bring him in, like, and I'm sure he's not necessarily going to be ready to be your opening day starter, then it's like, why don't we just wait, for Cole Young at this point? Like,
Sure,
right?
totally, yeah.
So I'd put the Mets lower on there unless they decide that we really want to, I always loved messing around on Madden with the trades. It's like, okay, it's like it shows you red, we're not really interested at all. Yellow, we're like, okay, we're thinking about it. Then green, it's like, all right, it's good. I don't know, the Mets are going to do something. They really need to put it in the green. Like you can't say yes to anything that's just kind of like, oh, this is kind of fine, And then I know the Yankees. There's been stuff on the Yankees. I don't know if Rosenthal had it. I don't think it was Rosenthal, but I guess the Yankees have been listed as a team who could look at him after the Mariners outbid the Yankees for him earlier. I just don't know if a trade happens between those teams, truthfully. So I don't know. It just feels like a lot of fun routes and then hitting an immediate dead end. I just don't know where Seattle goes with this. I think they'd be happy if we get to opening day and 58 still on your roster. But then it gets to the other things about how do you get better if you don't have much allowance from mommy and daddy to play with. You need to get better, and that kind of brings me to Chris.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, how about those M's?
Oh, I'm excited.
I know. Where are you going to watch all those away games, though?
Away games. Huh. I was thinking of coming here since, after all, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports.
I love that idea. Hope to see you all here.
Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here with Circling Seattle Sports. I'm joined by Jen Barnes of Rough and Tumble that we happen to be at right now.
Yeah.
Jen, why don't you talk to me a little bit about what we're announcing today, which is our partnership.
I'm so excited about this. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I think all of us here at Rough and Tumble are big fans of what you and your team at Circling Seattle Sports does. And so, I know you know this, but when you came to me with this idea, it just seemed pretty natural. And it's not just me. I think a lot of people in the sports community in Seattle also really respect you and your team. So it's exciting to kind of see these two things melding together, and we're really excited to start implementing some of the things and then hopefully seeing you guys a little bit more often.
Yeah, and so with what Jen says about seeing us more often, we've got a few things in the works, but you'll see watch parties here. We'd like to do a few different of our community drives, which you'll hear about here in a little bit from now. We've got to make our announcements one at a time. I can't drop everything.
Not everything
right?
all at once.
But this has been a home for a lot of our team, whether it's myself, our friend, our photographer Liz is behind the camera. Liz is here often, so our team has kind of adopted this place kind of like our own since I saw you at our soft launch. So, it's been great to have that support. And in a lot of ways, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was the Rough and Tumble embodies a lot of what Circling Seattle Sports wants to do. Obviously with women's sports, with the storm and the rain, but just being, having the game on, every game on.
Yep.
How much of that, did you see a line kind of even before this idea was mentioned when I first met you?
I think it's always felt like that. I mean, you and your team were here on opening night, and you just feel like you're part of the space, so it felt like really natural. And the fact that you actually cover all of the sports really makes your group stand out. So you are always covering all the rain games, all the storm games. You'd have women's softball, you'd have women's basketball, you'd have women's hockey. We love it. So all of those things, and obviously passionate M's fans, passionate Hawks fans, and passionate Kraken and Sounders fans. So really, from our perspective, those two things meshed really well.
So, you heard it from Jen herself, but this will be our home for all of these events, whether it's you can't make it to these games at home, we're always going to direct you to Rough and Tumble, and obviously the games on the road as well. All these, we're talking about the rain, they've got their schedule out finally, but this will be our home for that.
Great.
The storm games on the road, this is our home.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes.
I love it.
And when I mentioned it to Jen, when I first had this idea come up, I had this idea come up wearing a pink wig.
Yes, you did.
Ahead of Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game for the Reign this past year.
Yeah.
I told her it's because I wanted this to feel genuine.
Yep.
I wanted a connection to feel genuine, and it does. So that's what this is. Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, and I'm so excited to finally announce this partnership.
I can't wait.